Oh, oh, we are live. Hey, how are you guys? Um, Remember how I bragged all last week how good I did at doing an update every single day? And here it is Thursday when I'm doing my first update. I got no one to blame but myself. Got no one to blame but myself. And we don't do politics. If congratulations are in order, congratulations. If condolences are in order, my condolences. But thank goodness that's all behind us now. Okay, now let's just talk about the important stuff like rock and roll. Okay, I don't care who you voted for. I'm just glad you're here. I love you no matter who you voted for. I don't care about your politics. So let's talk about the important stuff. Um, Let me tell you what happened this week. It's been a week. Monday, I spent all day in the emergency room. About 8 in the morning, my wife works at a school just in the neighborhood, just a few blocks away. So our normal morning routine is I get my one son. He gets on the bus really early. He's in a wheelchair, and so he has a special bus that comes and picks him up, and they pick him up early, like about 6:25. I'm loading him on the bus, so I do. And that's the morning routine. I get up early, get him ready, off to school. I work from home, so I can kind of run back, and I have some flexibility in my schedule. So then about 7:50 every morning, I then run my other boys. If I have time, I run them to school. If not, I run them to a city school bus stop down the road, just about 3 minutes, right? Um, so about 8:30 Monday morning, and this has happened to me before, guys. The right side of my body goes numb. So I knew right away something was up. That lasted about 5 minutes, and then it subsided and my face got numb. So of course, what am I thinking? I'm thinking I'm having a stroke. This was stupid. I'm not recommending you do this. I got in the car. I drove my boys to the bus stop 3 minutes away, came back, and then called my wife and said, I need you to take me to the emergency room. And so she did. And it kind of freaked us out at how, because by the time I got there, I felt pretty good. I mean, the numbness everything felt normal. I was feeling kind of lightheaded, but I wasn't in pain. I was lucid. I mean, and we get there and we go into the emergency room, and then I look at my wife, and we both kind of freaked out at how serious they took it, right? They rushed me straight back, and they're like saying, we got a stroke, and there's all kinds of people running around, and they're getting me ready. They lay me on and it was crazy. Well, to make a long story short, I had a TIA. They refer to those as mini strokes. So I had a mini stroke. Well, this exact same thing, I might have shared it with you about a year and a half ago. I play in a dad band, we play classic rock tunes. And right at the end of a gig, I had this exact same thing happen about a year and a half ago. And my drummer, who's a healthcare professional, he's a dentist, he called the ambulance right then and there. And I'm like, oh, dude, don't. He said, no, we're not going to mess around with this. We're calling the ambulance. Called the ambulance. So I got an ambulance ride a year and a half ago. They ran a bunch of tests. They didn't do an MRI. They did a CAT scan and some other stuff. And there was no, everything looked fine based on what they did. Well, Monday, they actually ran an MRI as well. And the neurologist said, you had a TIA. So I'm assuming I had a TIA a year and a half ago because it was exactly the same thing. Not only that, I had one on the day before the one a year and a half ago. It just went away, and I thought, well, maybe I'm getting a migraine because I get migraines, and sometimes with migraines you get weird. So I potentially maybe had 2 TIAs a year and a half ago. Well, I know I had a TIA on Monday, and what they say is that if you have a TIA, you're more susceptible to have a full-on stroke immediately after, right? So I'm a little nervous. Obviously, I feel okay. I feel kind of weak. weaker than usual. I always feel weak, but kind of weaker than usual. Took a few days off from work. They got me on some new meds. What's the moral to this story? The moral to this story, and they told me again this time, you did the right thing. You come in, you call, because what happens, especially men, we're the worst about this. It's embarrassing, right? If you call the ambulance comes to your house. It's embarrassing. Or, you go to the emergency room. I was literally there like 9 hours. I was there all day on Monday, figuring all this stuff out. My poor wife, anyways, what's the moral to the story? If you experience those symptoms, right? You go numbness, your face getting numb, all of those are all symptoms of a stroke. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a full-on stroke. In my case, it was a TIA. But I was told by 3 different people on Monday, no, you absolutely, it's better to come in and find out it's nothing than to sit at home and have a full-on stroke. So that would be my message to you, right? Don't mess around. Okay. And men are the worst. We hate going to the doctor. I hate going to the doctor. It's the worst thing I'd just rather be sick than go to the doctor. I'm just being honest, but you can't do that. So that was the beginning of my week. So we got that. Let's talk about some classic rock news. Not a whole lot of news. Anytime you got a big thing like an election, that kind of takes the front seat. And so you can't find a lot of other news, but we got some rock news. This is sad news. Quincy Jones, famous legendary producer. Obviously, he's worked with Michael Jackson, the Jackson 5, lots of other people. He was a famous jazz musician himself before he became a producer. He died at the age of 91. This is actually back on Sunday or Monday, so I'm kind of a few days late on this, but he was a legend in the industry. One of my favorite stories is when he called called Eddie Van Halen to play on the Thriller album. And Eddie thought it was someone joking him. So Quincy had to call him like 3 times. And he said, "It's me, Quincy Jones," because Eddie kept hanging up on him. But then he found out it really was Quincy, and they wanted him to come down and play on a song. The song, of course, turned out to be Beat It. Here's what people don't realize. You hear the catchy guitar riff, and everyone thinks that's Eddie. No, the only thing Eddie plays is the guitar solo. That's all he does, is he plays the guitar solo. And we find out after the fact, Eddie said that the guys in the band were mad that he did it because the band was like on hiatus. No, they weren't doing anything. And so Ed was like, "Yeah, I don't care. I'll go down and play." He literally went down and took like a half an hour to go down and record this solo. They didn't pay him, by the way. He didn't get paid. He just went down and laid down a solo. But the cool riff and all the music aside from the solo, that's all Steve Lukather, right? Luke plays. That's all Lukather. All Ed did was come in and play the guitar solo, which is awesome. But Lukather and other members of Toto are all over that album. I just thought that was always a funny story. So Quincy Jones passed away, 91 years of age. 28-time Grammy winner. I did not know that. 28-time Grammy winner. Passed away peacefully at his home in Bel Air, Los Angeles. So our condolences to the family of Quincy Jones. Russ is joining us. He says, "I've been listening to Alex Van Halen's audiobook, Brothers." I think I'm going to get it because I've watched some video clips and it sounds interesting. We never hear from Alex, so it's kind of cool to hear him. Alex is a very thoughtful, well-spoken guy, and we just never hear from Alex. We heard from Dave all the time and Sam all the time, but not from Alex. So yeah, I think I'm going to do the same, Russ, and thanks for checking in. Okay, this news item. I'm a big Foreigner fan. You know, I'm a Foreigner fan. And I've gotten myself in trouble praising Foreigner with Kelly Hansen because I saw him last year with Kelly. I've seen him with Lou and with Kelly Hansen. I've actually seen Foreigner with Lou twice. I saw them on the Agent Provocateur, like around 86. Yeah, I think in 86 I saw them. Before the Inside, yeah, it would have been 86, I think. I saw that tour. And then I saw them in 2002. We'll talk about that in a sec. And then I saw them last summer with the cover band version. Still a great show. What a great catalog. I mean, the Foreigner albums, the first Foreigner album, Double Vision, Head Games, Foreigner 4, though, man, just great. They always got the moniker corporate rock, they're a great band, great catalog. I'm so glad they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Not that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame means squat, but they should have been in there 25 years ago. So at least, a broken clock is right twice a day, right? So at least the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame got that right this year. They're still wrong on everything else, but I'm glad they made it in. Well, Ultimate Classic Rock has an article today about Lou Gramm. Lou Gramm is offering up some details on why he left Foreigner. And here's the thing. If Lou hadn't left, he'd probably still be in Foreigner. So, I mean, it's like KK Downing left Judas Priest. I mean, everyone slags on Priest or Foreigner that they don't have these original members. Journey. It's not Journey without Steve Perry. It's not Priest without KK. Okay, if they leave the band, what are you supposed to do? Is everyone else supposed to quit? So anyways, here's what Lou Gramm says. He says, in the late 90s, early 2000s, Mick and I began writing. So he left to do a solo career in like the late 80s, early 90s. Remember Midnight Blue? I think that was 89, maybe. And then Just Between You and Me, that song. So he had like 2 solo albums that were pretty popular late 80s, early 90s. I was working in top 40 radio at the time. We were playing the crap out of Lou Gramm. And we were still playing, recurrence from Say You Will, Say You Won't, right? So we're playing Foreigner stuff in the recurrent catalog and the current Lou Gramm stuff all at the same time. So he left. Okay. And then it was about, 94, 95, 96, sometime mid 90s was when Lou had it was like a stroke. It was an aneurysm, something in his brain. And he almost died. And he had a long, slow recovery. He went from about 150 pounds to like 250 pounds. He's not a tall guy. So his weight ballooned. He couldn't sing. I mean, he thought he was completely done. Well, I saw them in about 2002. It would have been 2002, like September of 2002, probably I saw him. How can I say it? It was sad. And it was sad. I felt sorry for Lou because he was not ready physically to be back on stage. He just wasn't. If he was singing easy parts, he sounded okay. It sounded like Lou Gramm. He had no range. He just looked uncomfortable. He was very heavy, a lot heavier than he looks. He just didn't look good and didn't sound good. I just had the impression that this guy is not up to this. And my wife and I left early. I'm a huge Foreigner fan. And I said, yeah, I got to go. I don't want to watch this anymore because I was sad watching it. So anyways, back to his quote. In the late 90s, early 2000s, this would have been around the time I saw him, Mick and I began writing, and we put some really, really good ideas together. I think we had about 7 songs complete, and we were hoping to finish with about 3 or 4 more songs and put out a new Foreigner album. And he said at that time they hadn't released an album in close to a decade. Still, the band was actively touring, and while on the road, Graham decided his run with the group was over. He says, quote, "We were playing something called Night of the Proms." This is not like a high school prom. That's the first thing I thought. Wow, they're playing proms? No. It's called Night of the Proms. It was done in Brussels, Belgium, and they had a huge indoor tennis arena where there could be like 4 games of tennis going on at once. It held 80,000 people. So basically, it was a big arena. After that series of shows, I left the band. I just had enough. And he explained the main reason was the fractured relationship between him and Mick. Mick Jones is the founder of the band. He's the leader of the band, but he wasn't necessarily doing the job the way he used to do it. And he was suppressing a lot of my creativity. Just sing your parts, Lou. He said, after contributing to just about every hit song that the band had released in 20 some years, to be reduced to just a non-creative part, just the singer, it didn't sit well with me. And following that Belgium gig, he announced that he would be leaving. And they said, well, why? What could be wrong? Everything's going so good. I said, it's not going good. I'm being shut out creatively, which is extremely important to me. I'm not just a singer, I'm a songwriter. And I always have been, even before Foreigner. So I left the band. And I've never had any regrets about it since. So, again, they throw a lot of shade on Kelly Hansen, but what else was Mick going to do? If he wanted to continue with the band, they had to do something. What else is Neil Sean and Jonathan Cain going to do if Steve Perry doesn't want to come back to Journey? Right? Should they just quit when should they quit the whole band because one person quits? I don't know the answer. I'm just throwing that out there for us to consider. Of course, Kelly Hansen came in. He's been in there since 2005, and he's a great singer, great performer. He does justice to Lou's songs. I don't have a problem with it. It's a great show. But Foreigner, again, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year, which is great. Now we just got to get Boston and Kansas and Styx and Bad Company and several other bands, Grand Funk. There's lots of bands that should be in there but aren't in there. I do have an email. You can send me an email, classicguitarrock@mail.com. That's classicguitarrock@mail.com. We talked about REO Speedwagon last week, and Lauren, one of our biggest supporters over on the other side of the state. I live in Washington. Lauren's over on the Seattle side. Lauren writes, "Hey, Jeremy, we talked about REO Speedwagon. I was talking about REO Speedwagon and that they got the name from a company called REO that made truck chassis, for fire trucks, water trucks, work trucks, So that's where the REO Speedwagon came from." Lauren says, REO are the initials of Ransom Eli Olds, who also started Oldsmobile. My friend Jeff chimed in right after that too, and he told me he owns a auto parts store in Florida, so he's a car guy, and he's told me the same thing, that it was the same guy that started Oldsmobile, which was the actual first production car. How do I know this? I'm an Oldsmobile nut. I owned several of the 442s and Cutlasses when they were cool cars back in the late 60s, early 70s. Cutlasses were awesome. Yes. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Lauren, for checking in. There's another little knowledge we're dropping on you. The history of REO Speedwagon. Not the band, the car, the vehicle. Thank you so much, Lauren. Guys, let me plug the radio station now. We've got a new, can I say a new shift, a new show? So our buddy, Rich Hanna, who does the Classic Metal Vault every weekend, he does the night shift. the graveyard shift, we call it. So beginning at 10 p.m. Pacific time, it's Rich Hanna until 4 a.m. the next morning. We call it the graveyard shift during the week. So check it out. You get to hear him instead of me yakking. So that's worth staying up for. But that's all on the radio station. If you haven't checked out our station yet, by all means do so. If you go to classicguitarrock.com, you got two buttons. It's really easy. Go to classicguitarrock.com. You click the CGR radio button or the podcast button. Takes you to both. And we also have our CGR blog in there. So check out the blog. There's a lot of blog posts, summaries of albums, all kinds of stuff. Keith. Hi, Keith. How are you? Keith is checking in. I was absolutely thrilled that Peter Frampton was added to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I agree. Frampton is great. Yeah, he's long overdue, by the way. Long overdue. He also should have been in there way sooner. Keith and Russ, thank you for chiming in. We're going to try and do this again tomorrow, guys. All right. Thank you so much. Live long and prosper.